and this band is called Dagwood. I'm Mike, and I play guitar.
I'm Killian, drums.
Grady, guitar and vocals.
I'm Tim, bass.
The band formed in 2011.
We started in Cheshire, Connecticut. Killian's from Hamden. We play punk music. Right?
Yeah, I guess so. Cheshire is the birthplace of punk music.
Tim used to come to all of our shows till 2016, and then he eventually joined, and then he was the only person that came to our shows, and then nobody came when
Nobody
he joined.
was left after that.
And we would mutually punish each other for hours outside, and then not with words, violence.
Why did you start making music? That's a good question. I started making music because it had an effect on me. The way it made me feel good. I wanted to know how to make that feeling. And it made me feel bad, sorry.
I always enjoyed writing songs. If you're not cool, you can join the
You know
band and you cool.
I think I can legitimately take this back a notch because both of our dads are musicians in like the Connecticut like punk power pop scene. So we probably are like very predisposed to just start playing music just environmentally. That's probably like as honest an answer as I could give.
Right, I think that's accurate. I think when I grew up, my dad was in bands. He wasn't in bands when he was younger, but when I was like 3 years old, they was in bands, and so it just kind of seemed like it was just something that you're gonna do. So
No one in my family plays music. When I was a kid, I had an X Games game for PlayStation that had a soundtrack that had like Rancid on it. And before that, I probably heard Blink-182 at some point, and I liked that. Why did I start playing with Dagwood? I started playing in this band because I went to college in Chicago, and I didn't like it. Heard one of their songs from their old band, and asked to join. And our friend and bass player at the time, Andrew, said sure, and didn't tell anyone else in the band. And then I showed up to the practice, and kind of just like started playing with them and didn't stop. And now it's a lot of years later, and we're still here. I met Grady, well, I didn't meet him, but the first time I remember seeing Grady was in the halls at high school. He had long hair down to his shoulders and a Rusty Spoons, whatever that cartoon was, t-shirt, Salad Fingers t-shirt, and headphones on, and he looked like the most dejected person I had ever seen in my life. I don't think I talked to him till years later. Yeah, I met Killian the day after Thanksgiving in high school when our ska bands played a show together. He had like a flock of seagulls kind of haircut or something, I think. But it was probably just more like surfer mob. I don't remember when I met Tim. I don't know. Actually, I remember the first time I saw Tim must have been one of your first bands, Ted K, playing at the Knights of Columbus in Wallingford a long time ago. 2004, 5, I don't know. Something crazy like that.
I'll quickly go through. So I met Mike. Mike was in a ska band that was really popular in high school. I don't think I actually met you at the time, but I would go to their shows, and the whole school would go. Can't remember when we actually met for sure, but I was at that same show that you guys played together. You were wearing a shirt that said "Skanking ain't no fancy walk," and
Were you really?
and there was something funny I was going to say about something like
There's a lot more ska.
something like really fucked up that you said to me, but I can't remember what it was. Tim, I met at a show, and you were talking to there was a fake phone that wasn't plugged in, and you were in the corner talking to somebody on the phone, and I was wondering what what's up with this guy. But then we played a show at the Puppet House in Brantford, and we were covering a ska cover of Linkin Park's In the End, and I looked down, and I had known of At All Costs. I would go to At All Costs shows. I saw Seymour and you looking up and just like cracking up, and just like the only people in the room that appreciated a Linkin Park cover.
You could restate it differently from my perspective, yeah. Mike, I must have met first. Well, maybe Tim. I might have seen Tim before I met. Anyway,
Yeah.
I met Mike when our ska bands played together at a matinee show at the Space in Hamden. I met Grady. I don't know when I met Grady, but I'm assuming it was when he was like an attendee at a show I was also at or playing or something, and I thought he was like a little kid, but I think he's older than me. And Tim, I don't know if we like talked about. We were just like, you know, when those situations when you're in a semicircle with a group of people. I think we were probably in at least a dozen of those before we actually like knew each other.
I think the first time I met you, the first time I remember meeting you, we were at a weird show. It was a manic show, but I think it was like a backpack rap show in Hamden. I think it was like MERS or something like that. Does that ring a bell?
That rings a bell.
And yeah, we're hanging outside of the show, and I was like, who's this like 12-year-old kid chain smoking and cussing his head off? Where his parents open the schools.
Marbread 100.
Yeah.
And then, Mike, were you in that band that covered Linkin Park?
No.
No. I'm trying to think when I met you.
I don't know.
I
It was probably a similar situation
kind of
like
show.
Killian was describing.
Yeah.
I feel like I remember seeing you around all the time when we were younger.
Yeah.
But I don't think we really started like talking much at all until years ago, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I definitely could never forget that Linkin Park cover.
I should probably name drop like all of this is probably in some way due to the Flaming Tsunamis, who are like a really interesting, like experimental ska, hardcore, metalcore hybrid band, and they were like a black hole at the center of the Connecticut music scene, and we were all like in that band's like gravitational pull early on.
Yeah, it was sort of a weird intersection of ska scene, hardcore scene, punk scene. There's a lot more mention of ska than I ever anticipated there being, but now that I'm thinking about it, we have all been in bands with horns.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, this is like the questions about how it like started, right? And we all literally started in ska, even if it was like relatively short-lived compared to
Yeah.
like punk and hardcore and pop punk and stuff.
Another fun fact about my high school ska band, that's a dumb sentence, is that I never learned how to play on like, what is it, the upbeat or whatever. I played guitar and I played ska guitar, but I played it completely the opposite of how you're supposed to play it, and I didn't know because I was too dumb. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
That's exactly it.
It's actually kind of interesting because you were the only ska band playing ska parts like that, so it probably made you more interesting and unique, and you had no idea.
So was it actually a ska band?
Technically, there were horns, so yes, all bands with horns are ska. We know this.
This is true.
Yeah. Right.
When was the last time you listened to ska? Everybody just rapid fire.
On the way here.
I don't think I could say.
I don't think I have in a while, and I'm ashamed to admit that.
Oh, the specials. I've listened to the specials within like the last year.
I Tim's like the last hour. I think I watched some leftover crack videos on YouTube recently.
Oh yeah,
okay.
Right before we hit record, we're
Ska.
listening to Choking Victim. There you go.
How would you describe yourselves?
Yeah.
All right. Dagwood is punk inflected, towny rock that draws on a lot of like obscure and regional traditions, college rock stuff, power pop stuff, local to New Haven, and that weird sort of off the grid, multi-genre scene that we were all steeped in coming up. I feel like also informs the music, but also, you know, sort of just aspirations of writing great radio pop too.
I think Dagwood is unpretentious punk, power pop, and experimental kind of aspect to it, especially in the video realm because we incorporate video a lot. And also, despite the power poppiness, like very heavy hardcore punk undertones, which I think is important to all of us.
The best way I can describe it, not like sonically in terms of like the sound, would be like our songwriting is very earnest, but it's also so earnest to where it's funny. I don't know. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
Like I feel like a lot of the songs you write, Tim, they're a little more smart and a little more pointed, but I feel like a lot of our stuff is, I want to say like it's almost sweet.
Sincere.
Like it's sincere, but kind of funny at the same time, kind of aware that it's funny. At least I think that's what we try to do.
Yeah, Tim had touched on just the desire to write good songs, to whatever in line with whatever our collective taste is. And I think that's a huge thing that we all try and get behind. If the song, it's always like the song is the most important thing. It's kind of at a point where I'd rather just like not play a part if it makes the song better or something like that. Killian kind of touched on the weirdness aspect or experimental aspect that we can't really seem to shake even when we try to. We just kind of end up throwing in some stupid transition or heavy mosh part for like 1 second that wouldn't really make sense in like a sweet sounding power pop kind of thing. I don't know. Yeah, I think when we first started, we had been